Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Seizure. I am Jeff Arbuckle. With me as always, Jason Oliver. Jason.
Hi.
How's it going?
I'm going good. Yeah.
Doing good?
Great.
Doing good?
Yeah.
Chuck Moore.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great, Chuck. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good.
You're good? You're good? You're good? Chuck was excited about talking about this one.
I was.
I think. And I think we still are.
Yeah.
We are talking about 1963's The Pink Panther from Blake Edwards. Got some real quick. I do want to say this was released in 1963 in Italy, and then 3 months later was released in the United States. So depending on what you look at, it's either going to say 63 or 64. But what's most interesting is that its direct sequel, Shot in the Dark, was released 3 months later in June of 1964.
So before it, in some ways.
Well, no, June 64.
I know.
So, yeah.
That's a very Clouseau thing to say.
Yes.
I mean, you get my point. I'm
Yeah.
a joke, but
Now, the Shot in the Dark, the reason why it was so, because it was already in production, or was getting pretty close to being in production as this movie was being filmed. And it was originally not going to be a Clouseau movie, but they talked Blake Edwards into doing it. And he said he'd do it if he could rewrite the character, the main character of A Shot in the Dark, which was based on a play, to be Inspector Clouseau.
interesting.
So it's the only movie based on something else before it, but it's also had nothing to do with Inspector. So they rewrote the script to make it an Inspector Clouseau movie.
That's interesting because I feel like A Shot in the Dark might be the most well-known Pink Panther movie in some ways.
It's the one where a lot of his later stuff is more pronounced in it.
Yeah, it just
like
feels
his
if you think about Clouseau, it's A Shot in the Dark or the next film.
or the one after that. Yeah. The first one in the 70s. Yeah. I don't know, but anyway, we're here to talk about the Pink Panther, where it all began, which is interesting because Inspector Clouseau is kind of a supporting character in this movie.
Yeah.
Whereas he's the lead in the rest of them.
It's David Niven has top billing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, he is.
Dude, it's so weird that William Peter Blatty has a writing credit on Shot in the Dark. That's very strange.
Yeah. So yeah, this is more about the Phantom than it really is about Clouseau. Although Clouseau has a very key, I mean, he's very key in this movie, but
And he kind of steals the show in a lot of ways.
exactly.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, Chuck and I were talking a little bit about this, Jason, before you sat down. This was not the one I knew best. The ones I knew best were the ones from the 70s and the early 80s. Those were the ones that were on TV all the time. The much more slapsticky, much more zany comedy.
I
It
gotta
leaned
tell
into
you,
the Clouseau.
I don't think I'd ever seen this movie.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
Yeah, the Pink Panther movies are kind of one of those franchises that are all conflated for me, right? Because I saw them when I was a kid, and I didn't know. I probably didn't even ever see any of them like from start to finish because they would just be on TV, right?
Yeah.
So no, I don't know that I ever saw this movie. I mean, some of it I was familiar with, like some of the laughs are kind of iconic. Specifically, like when he puts his hand on the spinning globe and that kind of stuff, right?
Well, it's so much so he does that in a different way in a later movie.
Yeah. But no, this kind of was a first time watch
Yeah.
for me, I think. Yeah.
It's when I was a kid, I didn't much care for this one because it is more restrained. But as an adult, I think it's kind of brilliant that it's more restrained. And I'll get into a little bit more about that later. Chuck,
it was weird. It was weird for me because I was expecting more of the slapstick that I knew, and not getting it, and getting like really long dramatic scenes, and I was just like, "Do we need this?" I liked the movie. Don't get me wrong, but I think I said it in our group chat. Like I would have cut this movie up a little bit, made it a little snappier if it were me. But it wasn't me. It was Blake Edwards.
I don't know how much snapper you can make it, honestly, because of the end. Like requires a lot of the elongated scenes that are earlier is unfortunate. I think some of them are, but yeah, Jeff, I think you were going to mention. Like, I tried to get my youngest to watch this because she's still living with us right now. And is that what you were going to ask, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. And I played her the trailer, and I'm watching the trailer, and I'm like, I only remember like half of this that's in the trailer. And as it turns out, as I watched the movie, as much as I like it, I didn't remember half of it, probably half of it that you would, suggest cutting, Jason. And I do not think my kid would like this version of Clouseau. What's funny about it though is as the trailer of it is the Pink Panther looking at the film. I don't know if either of you guys watched this. Like it's kind of a cheeky thing of the cartoon Pink Panther looking at the film of the movie and the narrator talking to him, and Brindley was like, "Oh, this is based on the cartoon." I'm like, "No, actually, the cartoon is based on this," which I didn't even realize.
Yeah,
but
yeah, the cartoon. So the cartoon rolled out of how popular the opening credits were.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not even about the movie. Like, I don't even think the Clouseau cartoon character showed up until the 70s.
He was in, he's in the trailer walking, right? Like he's in the trench coat and the hat with the glasses. It's almost like, it feels like Private Eyes, which we covered that years ago, right? I think. God, I love that with Don Knotts and Tim Conway. Anyway,
oh no,
feels like
no, we haven't covered that.
We have not covered that.
No.
Oh God, we got to cover that.
We haven't done any Don Knotts on this podcast.
Well, we need to. Don Knotts month coming to you soon, everybody.
Mr. Chicken.
I've talked about the Ghost of Mr. Chicken. Not even on Monster Mondays, but I brought it up in episodes. Yeah.
I thought I had us cover that movie. That's wild. We didn't. Sorry,
I think we're getting a little bit of a tease of what may come up later in the year at some point.
Yeah.
I can only think of the Hall Note song, but yeah.
I'm watching you, Jason.
Watching you.
But anyways, yes, I don't think this movie, as good as I think it is not the film that I remember.
Yeah.
And loved as a child, which, Jeff, you already alluded to. Like the zany, quirky, just vehicle of Clouseau. That is not my dog. From later.
Yeah, I think that probably the one that we think of the most, or the stuff that we are probably getting the most out of, is probably Return and Strikes Again.
I think Return for sure, yeah.
Agree. But not the Roger Moore one, because that pissed me off.
No, that's the Curse of the Pink Panther. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was an Alan Arkin one too, I guess.
Yeah, the Alan Arkin one's the third one. That's the only one Blake Edwards didn't make until the 2006 one.
Yeah.
You know what's also like hilarious is I was watching this movie the whole time. I didn't realize that was Robert Wagner.
Yeah.
I realized it halfway through, and I was like, Stephanie, that's number 2.
It's number 2. Yeah.
And she's like, because I'm terrible with names, and she's like, Robert Wagner? And I'm like, yeah, that's Robert Wagner. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that's fucking Robert Wagner. And this was during the bedroom scene where, which is like chaotic, great scene in the movie. But
yes, it is.
That's when I realized it was Robert Wagner.
Well, I knew it was Robert Wagner from those movies later, when he shows back up, like in that Curse of the Pink Panther, or that later one.
I have to level with you because I don't think I've seen a Pink Panther movie since the 80s. As much as I loved them when I was a kid, I don't think I've seen one. I obviously watched the first Steve Martin one and was like,
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
But
I think maybe the last time I saw a Pink Panther movie is maybe we put it on at VH1, like one of them on at VH1 at some point in time.
So maybe in the 90s.
But you don't get to really sit and watch it, right? It's just kind of background. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of happening. Yeah.
Have you continued to watch?
Yeah, we definitely
these,
did, because
Jeff?
those were good movies to put on, because it's safe, right? But they're fun movies to have on.
Right.
Yeah.
It's safe.
It's safe, you know.
Yeah, safe for like if kids come in. Yeah,
exactly. You gotta be kind of cognizant of the kiddos.
Jeff, when was the last time you watched this one?
This one, I don't know. Probably when I bought that DVD set back like 20 years ago.
That was a long time
probably.
ago,
Yeah. So you're.
But like, there's so many things that are like, you know, kind of ingrained. You know, it's like
Sure.
So, but anyway, I did see the 2006 one. And yeah,
I mean, Steve Martin, is that
Steve Martin and Kevin Kline, yeah. But that's more based on the later one. It's more like the later ones than this one. You know, and the Pink Panther it's so funny because like the Pink Panther is in all of these movies' titles, or at least the one that
but the
Blake Edwards made, but the diamond isn't really a part of it.
Yeah, it's so weird. As a kid, I was always like, "Who's the Pink Panther?"
Yeah, it's like it's not David Niven, it's not Inspector Clouseau.
I honestly don't think I knew the actual origin of the Pink Panther.
He's a dead ant
until I watched it this time around. Yeah.
Dead ant.
Oh boy. But yeah, so right, and that's how the movie begins. The movie begins with the origin of the Pink Panther, the diamond that has been made by a Maharaja to give to his daughter. But the thing is like with all diamonds, there's an imperfection in it, but its imperfection is what makes it special. Because if you look into it, it does look like a leaping pink panther.
Yes, and it's not just what makes it special. It is the largest diamond in the world.
Well, that too. But I mean, but it's the Maharaja was not impressed with, or was concerned about the flaw.
Right.
But once he saw what the flaw was, that became the thing, you know,
that's what they name it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so he's going to give this to his daughter, who is the princess of some country. I will give this movie credit that this first scene at least has brown people. Later, some of the people are not played by
their brown face.
Exactly. Yeah. But I will at least give credit to the beginning of this movie. They tried a little to not just brown face people.
Right.
But so as the movie begins, it's 20 years later, and there's a little bit of world hopping here going on. Because
a lot of meanwhiles.
The meanwhiles, yeah. So in one scene we meet, there is a fence and a smuggler who is being chased by the cops. The lady is able to basically get away by doing a quick change in an elevator. The other guy just gets away because they follow the girl instead of splitting up and following him too. We never see that guy ever again, I don't think.
No. I don't, unless he's the guy in the car, I don't think we see him again.
I don't think he is, though. I think he's just a guy that the Fence was going to meet.
Oh, he's definitely not. I remember his face. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't see him again.
Yeah, we don't see him again. Which in another scenario, we also meet Robert Wagner's character, who is George Lytton. He is the son of a famous man named Sir Charles Lytton, who is well known for being a playboy.
It's the nephew, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. The nephew. Yes. The son of his late brother.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we see him get basically thrown out of school. Why was he thrown out of school? Do you remember, Chuck?
It doesn't. I don't remember. The important part is that he stages his graduation pictures, which kind of.
I don't think he was in school at all. He was just staging. Yeah, the
he does get thrown out at some point, but yeah,
right.
He stages graduation. I don't even know if we see it, Jason, necessarily.
Yeah, you might be right.
But he stages the fact that he's graduated with some other kids, and then some dudes show up. Some fucking hammer face New Jersey dudes show up and are like, "You owe me $40,000," and he takes off.
It's the day.
He absconds.
Yeah, he absconds. He absconds. Yeah. Good word, Jeff.
Yeah, and so
he beats cheeks.
He beats cheeks.
That's also a good word.
Yes. We do then meet Inspector Clouseau, who has been trying to track down the infamous gentleman jewel thief called the Phantom.
Yeah.
And this is where we start. This is where I realize as an adult, this is more brilliant than I thought it was as a kid. Because one of the things that's brilliant about this is that his buffoonery, Clouseau's buffoonery, happens without a whole lot of attention drawn to it. There's only one scene in which his buffoonery directly affects David Niven. Every other time that he's a buffoon, he's just it's something he's doing to himself. There's not a prolonged scene of somebody having to deal with his buffoonery.
Well, and I think that is Sellers too. Like, I don't think this character is supposed to be a buffoon. Like, he is a buffoon, but Sellers like exasperates it to the nth degree.
Yeah, because the first thing he does is he spins the globe, and then he's going to go lean on it, which causes them to fall over.
But you wouldn't lean on that fucking globe anyways and fall over. But
right. Or, yeah, I mean, you could lean on the top part that the thing is hinged on.
Yeah,
you know, it's like you could lean on that. But
he's an idiot.
Yeah, he's an idiot. Yeah. But he's also not exactly an idiot. Like, he's like, he describes how he knows how to find the Phantom pretty well. Like, yeah, you're kind of doing your job.
Yeah.
He has good deductive reasoning.
Yes.
But he's clumsy, and he has a lot of blind spots.
Yes.
One really big blind
There's
spot.
one really big one that we get immediately. The woman who gets away, who was the fence for Sir Charles Lytton, is his wife.
Yes.
So, yes, he does have
There's a little bit of naivete, I guess, would be the word.
Well, he's blinded by his admiration for his. Well, but he's also because she does refer to him as, or she does talk about him and how well he treats her. Like, he goes above and beyond to treat her really, really well.
Well, it's obsession in all aspects of his life. He's obsessed with his wife. He's obsessed with catching the Phantom. He's obsessed of looking like a good inspector, and like an obsessive dude.
Yeah.
In this movie, that kind of falls off later, but yeah.
Well, in this, so like we find out that they're going to head to. Let's see here. Hang on a second here.
Oh yeah, whatever country they're heading to.
Well, it's northern. It's the Italian Alps is where they're headed. It's Cortina d'Ampezzo.
Yep.
So they're headed off to Cortina, where all of these other characters are eventually going to converge. It's because Princess Dala has been deposed. Rebels have taken over her country. We find out later, they want her to give up the Pink Panther because they think it is property of the people.
She stole it.
And she has stolen it, and she says she refuses to give it up because it was given to her by her father. She doesn't see it as a thing for the people. It's a thing for her. And, of course, Sir Charles is the Phantom, so he wants to steal it. He also knows that Clouseau is going to be there because Clouseau's wife is his fence. What he does not count on is the arrival of his nephew, which will happen later. But yeah, so there's a lot of planning about how he's going to get into Princess Dala's circle.
When does the first James Bond movie come out?
62.
Because this has a lot of the trappings or it is very much a James Bond movie, and it feels like it's before James Bond's what do you call them? The things that constantly happen in James Bond movies happen in this one a lot, like the skiing.
Oh, yeah. Like the traditions
tropes.
and stuff and the tropes. Yeah.
Like the tropes. Thank you. I couldn't come up with the word. It feels very James Bondy prior to James Bond.
Well, and I
this
think
movie reminded me a lot of, like, take out the comedy.
In Her Majesty's Secret Service.
No, it reminded me of Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was also going to say, it's like, this era of comedies, because like right before this, also you have Charade with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah.
So, it's like there is the idea of the gentleman thief, I think is, it's like,
yes, exactly.
And Bond does play on some of those tropes. I mean, he's the gentleman spy as opposed to a thief.
The same character.
Yeah, he's basically the same thing. I mean, so much so that David Niven plays a version of James Bond in the shitty Casino Royale.
Oh, yeah.
Along with Peter Sellers and Woody Allen, because of course.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I've never actually seen that.
David Niven's so good.
Man, I love David Niven. When he shows up, it's just like, I'm classing up this joint.
Yeah. He, so he's going to have, he's scouting the princess while everybody else is arriving at this resort. And one thing that he plans on doing is she's got a little dog with her. So he and his hired guys are going to kidnap the dog, and he will appear as though he tries to save the dog.
That's so fun.
Right. Which is totally a trope that has been used in comedies, countless comedies since, right? I don't know if this was first, but as the earliest example I could think of. Like it's like the dog napping so that they can. Wasn't it even something in like Something About Mary? Wasn't there a trope like that?
Oh yeah.
What's his name? The Matt Dillon character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Because doesn't the dog end up in like a full body cast at one point?
So, yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, all I know is how'd you get the beans above the Frank when I think about that movie?
Don't touch my baseball.
Yeah. So anyway, so basically in the process of attempting to save the dog, he also feigns injury.
Yes.
Like he fakes twisting his ankle. So this is the only time in which Clouseau actually directly interacts in a buffoonish way with the Phantom. Is they're bringing Sir Charles in on the stretcher, and Clouseau gets caught up in it and falls onto the stretcher, where they both get carried into the elevator. It's interesting because like in later movies, there would be the big scene between Clouseau and Niven, and they would have it would just be Clouseau like bungling everything in front of him, and that was how most slapstick comedies would be later. Is that the buffoon hero and the suave bad guy would always be there would always be the scene of interaction where the buffoon is just like setting the place on fire practically.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this does work to get Sir Charles into Princess Dala's circle with the help of a social butterfly type of character that's always around to always throwing parties, always throwing these big soirees. She's I do like the fact that at one point in time she calls the princess, and the princess doesn't hold the phone to her ear while the other woman was just gabbing and screaming at her, basically like in the very fawning over her sort of way. So, as thanks for trying to save the dog, she invites him to dinner, to which he thinks, wow, this is going much better than I thought. I'm going to have private dinner with the princess. But no, he's there with all of the other socialites and such.
Yep.
And then, meanwhile, you have Clouseau and his wife are in the adjoining room next to Sir Charles.
Yep.
And so she's constantly using the little door. Remember when there used to be the doors between hotel rooms?
There still are.
They still do. Yeah, you can get adjoining rooms. Yeah.
I haven't seen one of those in a long, long time.
Last time I was in California, like a couple months ago, there's adjoining doors that you have to lock to make sure nobody comes in to see you. But yes, you have.
They're convenient because if you have a family, you want to be able to have the doors connect and not.
Well, they're also convenient if you have a gentleman jewel thief and the wife of
Yes, because that's what this is. You have Clouseau and his wife next to Charles Lytton, but also George is there.
Yeah, George shows up out of the blue. Now, George, more about like what he was doing to escape. He was posing as a college graduate who claims he's heading off into the Peace Corps, but he actually, and that's why Uncle Charles keeps allowing, like by posing as a college student and posing as somebody who's actually going to go off and do something good in the Peace Corps, he pays for George's life. And he also is like swimming in gambling debt.
But I don't know how. Yes, he is because of the hammer faces, the $40,000. But George is staying in Charles's place. Charles is trying to get involved with the princess, which we'll talk about. And then Clouseau and his wife are next door to their room, and Clouseau's wife is obviously involved with Charles Lytton, but she goes over to the room and ends up in the bedroom with George.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Well, the first time, so while Sir Charles has had dinner with the princess, Clouseau and his wife are in the bar.
Yes.
And they are at the bar and they're having a drink, and George just so happens walks up next to them and orders a drink and asks about his uncle, Sir Charles, which causes her to choke on her drink, to which Clouseau says, stick your arms up or George says, put your arms in the air. She puts her arms in the air. Clouseau says, bend over. She hits her head on the bar. And all the while, like, then she herself, like, runs out of the place and tracks down Charles, knowing that he's going to be at Princess's, whatever.
Stara's soiree.
Soiree, yeah, like in her cabin or whatever. And he is, and she's like trying to like wave him down because she's going to say, your nephew is here. Who is this? What is this? And he's looking for you. She sees him as a threat.
Yeah. Her pseudo spit take was my first big laugh of this movie.
Yeah.
It was really a good timing.
When she hits her head on the bar. That one. Yeah.
So he then later, so she ends up being found by, or like she has to leave before Sir Charles can get outside to say, because he excuses himself saying that his foot hurts.
Yes, because Dala has emasculated him.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, at the same time that he's
important.
Yeah, she's trying, because you've got Mrs. Clouseau outside trying to wave him down. Inside, Princess Dala has basically said that he is not a man, and because his constant pursuit of women and juggling them to the point where they know they're being juggled doesn't make him worth a shit to her. Right. Basically. And so all of this in the end, so they think he's leaving because he's emasculated by her, but he's really trying to figure out what Simone wants outside, but Simone has to leave because Jacques Clouseau is now coming to find her and take her back to their room. So now he doesn't, and so she tries when oh my God.
It's hard to talk about comedies too, right?
Well, it's also, yeah, and this one's also like there's a
like purposefully convoluted storylines, yeah.
But at the same time, the plan isn't convoluted. That's another kind of brilliant thing about this movie.
But a lot of convoluted things happen.
Right, because everybody gets stuck in it's almost like the curse of Jacques Clouseau has caused everything to fuck up.
His clumsiness is contagious, yeah.
Yes.
They've been sucked into his orbit.
Right. So, yeah, because like this is how she finds out that George has gotten into his room. She goes next door because Jacques wants to have sex. And she's trying to.
The entire movie, poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy.
He gets what he wants at the end, though.
And it explains a lot about why he succumbs at the end. Is that he
accepts his fate. Yeah.
Yeah. But she's like, because she's like, because she's kind of doing the whole I've got a headache sort of thing, to which the first thing he tries to do is she wants more blanket. So he gets her more blanket. He gets in bed. He forgets to turn off the light. He's got to go and he's got to turn off the light. And then they mess around a little bit more.
He does the whole bit with the blanket too, like how to put the blanket on the bed. And
yes.
he just he just Supermans and it
yes.
to the bed.
It's like everything he does can be done so much more simpler, and he doesn't do the simpler thing.
It's that kind of stuff that I don't think you write into a script either. Like that had to be Sellers just
Peter Sellers
doing a bit, right? I mean, yeah.
It's Peter Sellers. What's great about this is that how do I say this? I don't know, I can't even say it. I'll just give it up. But yes, he's hysterical in this because it's not written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Like there are beats you're supposed to hit here, but he's doing his own embellishments. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He has figured out how to make this character seem almost like a child. Mm-hmm. Right? Like he's overly giddy about wanting to have sex.
But yes,
he's overly.
That's what I was going to say.
He's overly confident in his violin playing skills.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. But there's a pep in his step for a lot of this, every time he has to get up, he's almost dancing in his walk.
Yeah, but when he goes up to the light switch, he goes all the way up to the to the wall, and then like daintily, like flips it.
There's something about the way he's acting here until he realizes he's not going to have sex, and then he's just
is very dejected. Yeah,
yeah. But so the next thing he does after he goes and turns off the light again is he tries to play violin for her.
Oh my god!
Very badly.
Yeah, he's terrible.
It's hysterical.
I mean, it's like if she has a headache, this isn't going to help, Jack. You know? But then
she wants a sleeping pill.
Oh my god! And this the off-screen sound effects here fucking kills
with
me.
all the pills on the ground.
Yeah, you know what happened. He opens the thing and the whole thing explodes in his face.
Yeah.
So then you hear it all fall on the ground, and then he's crushing it as he steps out.
That
he
to
gives
me,
her the
was that maybe done in the sound editing later? Like,
I would think so. I would think so.
I think they added it later. Like they obviously added the sound effect, but I don't think he's acting like he dropped the pills.
No, he's acting straight. He's playing it straight. And
I think there's so much in the way that. Sorry, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
The way that Peter Sellers played this, that it made sense to make that look that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
because everything he does
100% right
is straight, yet he is clumsy.
Yes.
Like he doesn't call attention to when he falls down. He doesn't call attention that he's an idiot and eventually crushes his own violin by stepping on it.
He really
He's almost not even surprised that he did it, you know.
No.
Invented this character in the filming.
Yeah.
In a way. Like it was written away. Like he accidentally broke his violin, which he's like, what's the line, Jason? Once you've seen one
once you've seen one Stradivarius, you've seen them all, yeah.
Yes. Which is probably in the script.
Kills me.
But the way he delivers and does all this stuff, it's like we need to ham up this character because of the way that Peter delivered it.
Well, here's the thing. Jason, put your arms up in the air.
Yeah.
Bend over.
Jason,
bend over.
Die. Yeah. Get your head on your desk.
So but here's the other thing. You know what it reminds me of? Every single time he does something stupid or silly or falls down or whatever, he plays it off without actually saying the line. He plays it off like when Pee Wee Herman was doing the bike tricks, he fell off his bike and stood up in front of all those kids and he said, I meant to do that.
Yeah.
That's exactly how this is being played. He's just not saying the line.
But it's also like impetus for like the Naked Gun.
Oh yeah.
And the straight playing of the comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some of this too in Kind Hearts and Clarinets a little bit.
Well, that was something
of the comedy, very British, in that Monty Python took to the next level by saying we'll play it straight, but we'll play it funny.
Right.
Yes.
I don't know how to explain.
We're gonna take it a little over the top.
It's like we're going to do the Ministry of Silly Walks, but we're not going to pretend like this is weird.
Which
we're just going to do
Walks is like the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen.
Yes,
in my life.
Right, but they play it like this is an everyday thing. What's wrong with you?
There's a matter of factness about it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and that's the one thing I also wanted to say. It's like because we had Kind Hearts and the Coronets, we had Dr. Strangelove, and we have this. These are all comedies that are playing things straight. Well, and what's
story,
crazy,
the story is straight.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is that the more over the top one is Dr. Strangelove, which is only over the top because of George C. Scott.
Yeah.
Well,
Slim Pickens,
and Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah,
well, there's
a lot of pretty wild characters in that.
Jeff, let's not be crazy here.
But at the same time, though, it's like it's a movie that is taking itself very seriously while being silly.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yes.
Absolutely, 100%.
And and this is something that I don't want to be that guy, but this is the stuff that's missing in comedies today. That's why I don't really care.
Well, I mean, you said this, I think, when we watched Doctor Strangelove, not to interrupt your thought there, but yes, there is a bit of the serious, and we're going to cover a couple of these in a couple weeks that I think have a serious nature, that have a comedic aspect of them, but they're not like this.
Right.
Like, they're not over the top. Like, I called it, when we were talking about Doctor Strangelove, I called it Kurt Vonnegut comedy, because it's making you laugh at the very serious. Right. This movie, not as much as Doctor Strangelove, for sure.
The two you're mentioning... No, sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, please, I'm good.
I was just going to say, the two you mentioned, I think is kind of a take on the buddy comedy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a type of comedy, and it's a very much like, obviously a niche, but it's hard to do right. There are only a few movies in the true pantheon of buddy comedies that really work. And it's an elevated form of that, I think.
Yes, the part that's centered around a serious topic, especially one of them that like makes it like that does elevate it.
Sure.
Like this movie is elevated by the stakes, not as much because they don't even take the stakes as seriously in this movie overall. If that makes it like, do you guys see?
Well, there's a difference between seriousness and maybe darkness, right?
Yeah.
Like, dark comedy is not the Pink Panther, but there is something about the subject matter that they're approaching from a serious angle and allowing then the comedy to kind of seep into the cracks.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the idea of it's still taking its subject matter seriously. Now, The Gentleman Thief doesn't necessarily have to be as serious as World War III, right? Like with Strangelove, but it is still saying
itself seriously, but it approaches the
subject matter seriously.
Yes,
right.
Yes,
it's like this is a real heist that's happening, right? And now we're going to have this bumbling idiot kind of come in, and it's going to infect everyone.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean that's and that's what makes it a little bit more different, or a little bit different from the other two comedies we've talked about recently, right? Like it's the other two have darker subject matter, like you were saying, but then it also has like, there isn't necessarily a bumbling tool that is causing things that are happening are happening either by a crazy guy who dies before you get halfway through the movie, or it's caused by a guy who has a very deep-seated hatred for a group of people that has to go through an arc to complete that. And all three of those things, serious ideas or a serious approach, but they're all done in different ways I mean, anymore, it's like you can't, when comedy, I think my biggest problem with comedy over the last 15 years or so has been the desire to appeal to everyone. And I don't have a sense of humor like many other people, like I don't have a mainstream sense of humor.
I can feel that. I think my biggest problem with comedy, if we're getting into that, is the lack of written jokes.
Don't get me started on that.
Like and I don't have a problem with ad lib, and I like ad lib, and sometimes I think it's really funny. But I like a joke with punchline.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as like ad lib, it's like my biggest problem with ad lib is when the ad lib joke goes on for 5-10 minutes fishing for the punchline, and then they just eventually get there, or it has to be cut, or they never do, and it just ends, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, we all know that every week on Saturday Night Live, there's one or two skits late in the show where it's like, that wasn't very good because it's that sort of feel to it, right? Like they're fishing for something that they never fully figured out. And it's like, well, we got to have something, and it's like, we got to we can't, I guess we can't bring the musical act out for a third time. So we got to figure something out here. Yeah.
Sometimes those are the funniest too, though, but there is something to say about what you're saying.
I agree that's probably has certainly happened, like ad-libbing happens, but on SNL, but there was a writer, I forget which one it was, who said that you'd be surprised that probably 99.9% of what is said on stage in SNL was scripted.
Yeah. Well, no, and I guess maybe my point was not so much it was the fishing for the joke.
The concept was half baked. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like you're fishing for the landing and you can't get there.
They only have 3 days every week to write. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm with that 100%. And I think some people are just not funny all the time.
That's the other problem. That's what I was going to say, is not everybody has a right to be funny in their comedy.
Right.
Right. But I do think
crazy.
But I do think this is a movie where I think every single person in this is very good at what they do when they're being funny.
Sure.
I mean, one of my favorite scenes that I didn't remember about this movie, and we'll talk about it later, is like, it's one of the characters I thought could be taken out of this movie, but if that scene wasn't there, this movie wouldn't be fucking hilarious. But we'll talk about that later. That's
okay.
Part of the argument I might have with Jason later about the 30 minutes you might be able to remove from this film. Because
I know one guy.
So much of it is setting up what happens later.
Sure.
But
you can do that.
I'm with you.
There's lots of different ways to skin a cat.
That.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one cat I wouldn't skin, and it's the old man in the street. I fucking love that guy.
It's one of my favorite.
God. That is Blake Edwards.
The fucking chair.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
I mean that's Blake Edwards, the character in this movie at this point, where he's just going to let it all spin out of control.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I don't know if you're just saying Blake Edwards because he directed this movie and he inserted himself, or if you know.
No. I'm just saying that it's his. It would be It's the way he wants you to watch this movie.
Yeah, he inserted himself.
Yeah. He's like, if not himself, us. He's like, this is what I want you to do.
It's fucking tremendous. But
anyway,
let's go.
Okay. So basically, when she sneaks in to try to tell Sir Charles that your nephew's here, she ends up getting in bed with the nephew. To which the nephew's like, holy shit, we got room service ladies here. It's like, okay, I'll give this a shot. But she's like, maybe later. And she goes back to the room. Meanwhile, you have Inspector Clouseau with the glass of milk. And he does the whole thing where he hides behind. I don't know why he necessarily hides behind the column from just the bellhop.
Well, I think he's suspicious of Charles Litton, who's walking up the stairs. That's Litton that's walking.
Oh, is it Litton? I thought it was the bellhop that was walking. Okay. But anyway, he goes and he looks around the corner to see if he's passed. And of course, he doesn't take into consideration he's got the milk. And he spills half the milk, or like 3/4 of the milk. But then instead of saying to somebody he just blots it up with his slipper. It's like he knows what he's done, and he knows what he's done is stupid, but he's just playing it off. Whatever. Yeah. He goes back to the room. He doesn't tell his wife he's spilt the milk. He just says, this is all they had. Which she's annoyed by.
Oh my God.
So then they turn off the light, and then she's like, it's like, nah, I'm just going to go to bed.
Like blue balls extreme for him this entire movie.
Well, they do get one good go around.
They don't finish.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I'll buy into that. Yeah. They don't finish. But the music swells though at least once for But anyway, so he eventually, when do we get to the scene? So it's short. Well, okay. So the next day, the princess realizes that she may have hurt Sir Charles's feelings the night before.
Yes, because they actually have a fantastic scene, which is one I think that could maybe, like, an argument could be made that it could be left out. She goes over to his apartment because she hurt his feelings when she emasculated him. And she's like, come over for a drink. He's like, you come over here. And she doesn't drink.
Right. She said that the night before when he went over for dinner. Yeah.
Or that same night. I think it might be the same night. But yes, it is. She's like, all my guests have left. Come over for a drink. And he's like, my leg hurts like the dickens. Come over here. And she goes over, they drink champagne, she gets drunk, she's cute as all get out.
Oh, she's great. And that's Claudia Cardinal.
Yeah, she's,
as much as I love Claudia Cardinal, this is one of those scenes for me where I'm just like, okay,
I think it needs to be because she ends up having to do something at the end.
Fall in love, but yeah.
Yeah,
that would be my argument that she needs to really like him.
Yeah. In
order for the end to work.
Yes, I agree with that.
And even a little bit. Otherwise, it's like it's already tenuous, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, because it does cast a shadow on her character, which you think she's good, but maybe she's not.
Yeah, but she's cute as all get out in this scene, and she's like. But she passes out, fake or not. Like,
yeah.
You don't know if it's fake or not. Because she is the virgin queen, which is important. And when she's asked if she's the virgin queen, she's like, well, I'm not a queen.
Yeah.
But she passes out in this moment, and she's dragged out of the room and presumably, I think, explained to be brought back to her place.
Yes, she is brought back. She is first put into, I think she's first put into Sir Charles's bed, and then they decide to take her back.
Yeah, because George is in the bed, and that's when Sir Charles is like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Right.
Because he didn't know, which makes zero sense.
Well, whatever. But it's like, while you're here, help me.
While you're here, help me. And then George goes there the next day to apologize for the previous night. And that's when Charles and Mrs. Clouseau go over, and they're devising a plan to get rid of George, which I assume is to kill him on a mountain.
I thought it was more just you take care of George.
How do you take care of George?
Well,
kill him on a mountain.
Well, I thought it was more Simone was to be a honeypot at that point. Get him out of my way by, he's already, it's like there's interest there. So you just get him out of the way.
She's deflecting the love part of it.
True. Him. But it could be like, I always thought, I was kind of thinking, it's like, maybe it's kind of like a hard to get sort of thing, but
Sure, maybe. But in the actual movie, she's teaching him to
ski. Yeah.
And he just fucking flies down the mountain because she's deflecting his advances.
Yes.
And at the same time, we hadn't mentioned the dog napping, but the dog napping had happened, and
now it's time to spring how good Sir Charles is,
but
by
also
saying, that's the guy.
The princess is leaving.
Yes, and so she's leaving. He needs to. So he's like, oh, there's the guy who kidnapped your dog. I'm going to go chase him. And there's a big chase scene where he like takes one of those horse-drawn carriage taxi things.
Her carriage, yeah.
Yeah. And they fake a fight, and he gets the dog back. But as Sir Charles is carrying the dog, here comes skiing George, who like basically takes the dog like he's Saquon Barkley or something.
Yeah.
And busts through the line there. And and then he hands it over to Princess Dala, and she decides she decides to stay a little longer, right? Because later that night they're
The
at
train had already left.
Oh, that's yeah. So the train's already so that's the night that, and this is where you really see how tunnel vision.
Weird fucking music scene.
Well, but there's a weird like tunnel vision with Jacques Clouseau too, because he is now with his wife hanging out with Sir Charles and George and Princess Dala, and not realizing that George and Sir Charles are fawning over his own wife, and that she's fawning over them.
So here's the deal, like.
Oh, and then he gets caught up in the dance from the singer too.
Yes.
Oh my God, when he's off to the side, like he hadn't been in the movie for a long time, and I'm like, where the fuck is Clouseau?
And he's over there like he's yelling at the British guy he's been working with or something about something.
But when the dancer or the singer dancer, whoever she is, whose butt they focused on when it's starting, she's like, bing, 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 bing.
Well, that's what you did in 1963, man. You focused on them butts, them juicy butts.
Yeah, I had a point, but I got confused.
Yeah, juicy butts, bro. That's all your point now.
Butts confuse me. Yeah, I'll just stop now until I remember my point.
All right. Well, so yeah, and this is when Clouseau starts talking about the Phantom to Princess Dala. And this is, I think, the first time he's brought it up to her.
Yes, that's what I was going to mention.
Yeah, go for it.
He has an idea because who's that lady? I can't remember her name. Who throws?
Angela Dunning.
Dunning.
Yeah,
he's basically saying here what he says later in court is that every time Angela Dunning has a party, the Phantom is there, and the Phantom steals from a guest at the party. So he's like on it. What's funny is he's telling the story to all the participants.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like Charles Litton. Thank you. I knew it earlier. He's obviously at this point the Phantom, right? Like we know.
Well, we knew that. I mean, yeah, and I mean and Clouseau is about to nail it right on one guess in a few minutes.
Which is
well, he's gonna figure because he gets or he realizes that how do they figure this out? Because right after the scene where there's the madcap scene inside the hotel room where both Charles and George are there trying to get with Simone.
Great fucking scene.
And meanwhile, because George has called to get rid of Clouseau so that he can show up, and he shows up with one of the hallways vases, vases, I guess is what they would say there, of flowers, which is gigantic and stupid.
Yep.
Which is then so much funnier when Clouseau comes back, because he then realizes he makes the realization of how big and dumb it is by him crashing into it.
Yep.
For the rest of us. But anyway, and then meanwhile, like Sir Charles is also trying to get into the room to have sexy times, and they're all trying to hide from each other.
It's so good.
But then Clouseau realizes that whatever, the person that he was told to go meet in this other village, he crossed paths with on the way out.
He crossed
so
paths
he comes
with
back.
the bellman that was supposedly had made the call.
Right. And so he comes back, and it's like, it was a ruse or whatever it is that he said, and he's pissed about it. But
where's my jacket? It is gone.
Well, that's later, because then so he puts everything away. He crashes into the vase, which then is the whole reason why he falls off of the idea that this was a ruse, because then the wife talks about, it's like they're gonna have sexy times, but she's like, I need to take a bath first. At first, he wants to take a bath, but George is in the shower. So she needs to take a bath first so that she can get George out. And he wants to take a bath with her. And she's like, no.
He does.
But yeah. And we've got Sir Charles under the bed. And basically, it's all a bunch of, like, they're shuffling the people around, basically. And Jason, you brought up last night that this is like classic, like basically it's this type of comedy. It's all boiled down into this scene where it's like the classic setup of, you got people hiding over here, you got people hiding over there, and you got it's musical chairs to try to get them all out of the room.
And there's only one person who knows that they all are coexisting in this space.
Right.
The rest of them are oblivious to one or more elements. Yeah.
Right. I mean, one person knows everybody is in the room. Everybody knows that somebody is in the room that they can't be caught with.
Right.
One person that they can't be caught with. They don't realize that there are other people there that they can't be caught with.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of the comedy that the movie Clue explores to like the nth degree later, right?
Right.
That sort of chaos in a room comedy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in this movie, though, I mean, because there are other elements of it, like, this is where we see other parts of like Clouseau being kind of an idiot in terms of like, he crashes into the vase. When he takes off his shoes, you see one of his socks has a hole in it.
Yeah.
He just wants to be around his wife, and he cannot crack that whatsoever. It's like everything he wants to do to try to help her relax, she doesn't want any part of it. And he can't put two and two together that it's like, this is never going to happen, dude. It's never going to happen. But this is also the scene that when it ends with, it ends with them about to have sex, but then it also, and I should mention the reason why Sir Charles can't get back to his room is that he locked himself out of the room. So he doesn't have the key for the interconnecting door. So he has to go outside, which when they're about to get in the bed, he leaves the door open to the balcony, which then when Clouseau gets up to close that door, that allows George to get out.
Yeah, George can run out. Yep.
But then this is when so Clouseau ends up getting a call from the British guy that he's working with that says that the car yes, Tucker, that the car that was there was a car rental for the person who stole the princess's dog was rented by somebody who's an associate
employed by
Sir Charles
Lytton.
Yeah, by Sir. And at that point, he gets it in one. It's like Sir Charles is the Phantom. To which Tucker's like, whoa. Don't go, you can't just jump into it but he's right. It's absolutely like his instincts are right. This whole movie. I mean, like, he has good instincts. He just has no way to land the plane, if you will.
He's a knucklehead.
Yeah. that's one way of putting it. So basically, Clouseau grabs his golden gun. God. And the first thing he does is he shoots into the air right into the ceiling. And then he runs out to try to get into Sir Charles' room, but Sir Charles
the wrong way a few times and shoots.
Right, he shoots down the hallway, which I think that was also added in post. I mean, obviously the sound effect was, but again, I think that was like, let's have him just shoot directly into the hallway the moment he leaves the room. I do like at one point I think he is talking to Tucker, and he's holding the gun, and he's like, "You idiot! Don't you realize this is a loaded gun?" When he's pointing it at him,
he's holding it at his stomach, and
Yes.
he's trying to move it, and he's like, "You idiot! Don't you know this is loaded?"
Yeah, but during all of this, Sir Charles steals his hat and his Scotland Yard.
Well, there's a little more important stuff here, and I'll go through it quickly. When Sir Charles goes out in the balcony, he jumps over to his own balcony, and he sees that George is discovering his
his Phantom kit
gear.
Yeah,
Yes, his Phantom starter
kit. That's what he called it, a starter kit.
Fucking hilarious. So George is clearly taking that stuff to go to the Princess Dala's place to try to steal the Pink Panther. Also, Charles Litton has to do this, in which you just mentioned there's a little bit of a chase in the hallways where Litton ends up. The funny thing when he comes out of the fucking wall of
snow,
which is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And he has to go back upstairs and he steals Clouseau's shit and sneaks out of the hotel as him. And they're all going to Princess Dala's place.
She has gone to Rome.
Yes, she's gone to Rome. That's presumably where the Pink Panther is. We find out that's where it is.
And Dunning is going to throw a big masquerade party there.
Yes, which is, as we've learned through Detective Clouseau, is where the theft will happen.
Yes.
Because Dunning holds a party. I don't even remember if that's what you said her name was. But
yeah, Angela Dunning. Yeah.
Yeah, she holds a party. At the end of it, whoever was the mark gets their items stolen.
And there's also, for some reason, there's also a cue that's to be had at the party. When the princess turns out all the lights, it's time for the fireworks.
Oh my God, which is great. So this is a masked party.
What kind of a candle is this?
This is a masked party where fucking Clouseau, in his idiocy, decides to wear the heaviest fucking thing he can. So if he has to chase down the suspect, is not going to be able to do it.
Well, two of the other cops are wearing a zebra costume.
They're going to lose their stripes.
Yeah, they are. And there's at least 3 gorillas.
Yes, and that leaves. So let's forget about everything that happens here for the most part. There's 2 scenes that are fantastic in this. The first being that Charles Litton is trying to get in. There is, what is this guy? An ambassador who's also wearing.
Yeah, he's the British ambassador to Italy. Yeah,
and he's a fucking drunk, fucking idiot.
Yes.
So he keeps interacting with people, which confuses everyone, thinking that George and Charles Litton are both the ambassador every time they interact with somebody. And they are going to get the Pink Panther out of a safe. And Jason, can you describe this scene where the 2-sided safe and the 2 gorillas?
2-sided safe.
Or should I do it?
Who has a 2-sided safe?
I know it's got 2 doors. What the hell is that? But
this is another classic. This is like Marx Brothers level.
Right. It totally is. And it's very, they're both kind of cornering, right? So they don't see each other. And then it's almost like you see it in a lot of cartoons, old cartoons too, where they think they're looking in a mirror, but they're really looking at their counterpart. Yeah, so it's like a little bit of that comedy is happening.
They also
played that up a little bit more, but
they also did a fourth wall break too.
They did.
Yeah.
A couple times, actually. But them going around the corner and looking like it's so well orchestrated that you're like, I believe this.
Yes.
These knuckleheads, even though one of them is the greatest jewel thief in the world,
But he's infected by Inspector Clouseau.
yeah, sure.
There's-
I mean, I'm with that infection. Sorry, go ahead, Jason. What were you
No,
gonna
no, I
say?
was disagreeing with Jeff.
It's
There's something in the air when he's around.
it's so good, but you have Inspector Clouseau, and the other half of this is in knight's armor, which is super heavy, and he thinks he finds a candle, but in fact he finds
A Roman candle.
a Roman candle. He's like, oh,
Which makes sense
candle.
because they found a candle in Rome.
Yes, and then you have the joke with Cleopatra, where
Oh.
she's dropped her asp, which is apparently what, in reality, people think she killed herself with purposefully. I've read before. Like
I don't know the story of Cleopatra. I just know there's her and Mark Antony.
Yeah, Cleopatra apparently had an asp that she
Oh yeah.
gave herself a bite with to kill herself when she was in dire straits for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
I do. Those were some rough years when
Straits.
there were some rough years there when she was part of that band. So yeah.
Yeah. What was she? What kind of member was she of Dire Straits?
She's adjunct.
Adjunct. Yeah.
Her and she knew Mark Knopfler.
Yeah. She was the silent Knopfler.
She was Judge Knopfler. She judged herself and killed herself with an asp. But
Anyway,
get your
yes.
filthy hands off my asp.
She's
is
a
what she
pharaoh
says.
of swing, maybe.
Oh, that song,
Ooh.
the Sultan of Swing, is so fucking good. Like, it's legitimate masterpiece song, but forget that. I don't even know. You had the two-sided.
Yeah, well, then there's also there's also Godiva, who he runs into, who's supposedly naked, but she, of course, she isn't. I mean, she's wearing like a full body merkin.
But he's shooting his shit everywhere.
Oh yeah, he grabs he gets the candle. It's flying everywhere. Everybody is like panicking and running out. We do discover at this point, is it Tucker that Dala shows that she was the one who stole the Pink Panther herself?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of confusing shit here.
Well, so Princess Dala ultimately reveals that she basically knew that she was going to become a threat to the Phantom, and
Right, because
it's not Tucker. It's Clouseau tells her, but she was already kind of wise to it because she was purposely hiding that from not just the Phantom at the party, but also from the rebels that thought she should give that to.
It was the wife.
It was the wife. It was Simone that she said, because Simone is like, basically at this point, it's like, there's a way that you can, later basically says there's a way you can, make sure that Sir Charles doesn't go away for what he's done, which we'll get to that. But we got to.
But her intermediate plan is to avoid having to give up the diamond. So she's going to allow the perception of it being stolen, say it was stolen, but keep it herself.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Now, meanwhile, out in the streets of Rome,
oh my God,
everybody is driving around trying to get. So you've got Clouseau and Tucker in one car. You have George and Sir Charles in other cars, and they stop at one point to ask each other, talking through this old man who lives in this little
he walked out of a bar,
or he walked out of something, and he came out and they talked through him on either side of him, and then they take out the two cops in the zebra is running like a zebra after everybody. And the old man is just watching this all go down to the point where, yeah, like you said, Chuck, he just decides he's going to get a chair. He's just going to sit down and watch everything go.
He walks back to the bar or whatever that is that he comes out of, grabs a chair and sits down. And every time they cut to him, a car like zips on his asshole, basically.
Right, yeah, when he's standing in the road, like that is some good stunt work.
Yes.
Because you can't fake that shit in 1963.
No, and every time he moves 5 feet, the car ends up like riding off his butt.
Right.
So they did a good job there.
Yeah.
He sits down and watches, and as he's watching and turning his head, you hear a crash.
Yeah, and everybody crashes into each other. And so Litton and George are both arrested, and they're going to go away, for what they've attempted. But this is when Simone talks to Princess Dala, and it's like, there's a way that we can make this work out where he doesn't, because Princess Dala does say that, despite everything, she does think that Charles is a good man. To which, that's when, Simone's like, hey, I can dump the loser and and get with Sir Charles, and basically convinces her to be complicit in framing Inspector Clouseau.
Yeah.
So the defense attorney. Yeah, right. I mean, it just really goes to show you that, the rich really do not pay consequences.
We're going to find that out real soon.
Yeah, even 60 years ago. Yeah, but
ever. Maybe Rome had it right though. Just knock these bastards off every now and then.
Yeah. There's got to be an Ides of something coming around here at some point. Yeah. Anyway, so
you don't keep the people happy. They'll call for your head.
Yeah. Yeah. But so the defense attorney surprisingly calls Clouseau to be a witness before they close the case. And they basically, it's like, so who all were always at these parties that Angela Dunning put on? And he's like, well, the Phantom. Well, how did you know? Well, because I was always there too, which immediately, apparently, in this international court full of dummies, immediately gets everybody to believe that Clouseau is guilty on the spot.
It doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter, though, because his handkerchief...
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, Niven says, "Oh, it's fine. He'll get out the next time the Phantom strikes again."
Yeah,
right.
He's already planning his next heist. Yeah,
but also the Pink Panther diamond is attached to his handkerchief, which Clouseau is too dumb to realize is in his weighted pocket.
Right, which also would frame him as a really dumb criminal, right? Like he's really dumb anyway, because why would he bring it to the trial?
Bring the diamond to the trial?
But he becomes a bit of a Robin Hood, right? Like the fact that he's stealing from the rich has endeared him to women.
Oh yeah, because the women like the idea of the mysterious Phantom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yes, and since Clouseau has blue balls, like major blue balls in this movie. He's talking to the police officers that are transferring him, and he's like, "Oh, well, it wasn't hard,
or it wasn't easy." Well, it wasn't easy. Yeah, when they ask him how he did it,
hard, that would have been even funnier.
Yeah,
but because of his blue balls, but he does kind of agree to this. I don't know. I don't know. The end of this movie is fucking ridiculous.
Oh yeah, because it's never mentioned again. It's like
he's just out.
He's just out and about. Yeah, in the next one. Later on, though, Capuchin, who plays Simone, does appear later on as the lady, Mrs. Lytton.
Ah,
So she does eventually marry Sir Charles. I think it's in the one that pisses you off, Chuck, because I think they're all like David Niven, Capucine, and Robert Wagner are all back playing the original
one is
characters.
that?
Curse of the Pink Panther.
Oh, with Roger Moore.
Yeah, with the American guy trying to find out what happened to Clouseau.
That's
Only
what I
to
don't
discover
like
that
about
he
it.
becomes Roger Moore. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure
technically,
that I'd actually kind of like to watch that now. And like,
yeah, watch them all, man. They're easy breezy.
yeah, I mean, I will. Stephanie, I think, is interested too.
What'd she think of this one? She think it's okay?
Oh, she liked it.
Oh, wow, we're on a roll. God
Yeah,
damn.
she liked it. I don't know. I think she thought Backdraft was okay. And that was like, we talked about that last week. So sorry to bring this up now, but her dad was a firefighter who had just broken his back when Backdraft came out.
Oh,
Was it due to a railing fight with the guy who might have been crooked?
I'll have to ask her how he, like, I know this, but I can't remember right now. But that was like a horror movie to her when she was a kid because her dad had just got hurt, and then
totally.
she wouldn't have been allowed to watch that movie at her home, but she watched it at somebody else's.
Because it was R-rated.
Yeah, one of those kind of stories. And
So she identified a little bit with Billy Baldwin.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, she was.
So she wouldn't be rushing into any rooms.
She
to
was
save
terrified
kids.
for her father, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that would have been great last week.
Yeah, I wish I would have remembered that. You know,
Well, I'll tell you.
save
Let me
the
tell you.
best for the
I'm
wrong
gonna
week.
start calling that the Curse of the Pink Panther whenever we
Yeah,
tell a story
I mean-
in the wrong episode.
Well, I was about to tell the story of my incredibly famous French inspector cousin that
Did you guys
didn't know
I
about
saved
that.
a diamond once?
Wait, did it almost fall in a fire?
Yes. Actually, I threw my wedding ring into a toilet on our wedding night. Does that count?
Threw it in?
On accident.
That's not nearly as bad as Mike DeCrane losing his in Geist Reservoir.
You're right. It's not. But I still have mine. This,
This is a. Go ahead, Chuck.
no, I was just going to ask you, like, is there any. How do I frame this? Like, is this just a comedy? Is there social commentary we need to pay attention to in this movie?
That's a good question. I think it's just a comedy. I don't think that there's a whole. I mean, like we could say today, like very easily, it's like, yeah, obviously the rich guy got off. The guy who was popular and rich and everybody liked is gonna have. You could always say that, but
Right.
that's in so many. I mean, like everybody knows that. That doesn't have to be a comment made by any one movie at any period of time.
Sure.
I think that it is. I mean, I think it's just a really smart comedy.
It is. It is funny. I like it a lot. And I like the later ones better. But like putting it up against Kind Hearts, like I'm like, this isn't as smart as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, Kind Hearts and Coronets is a much different type because that one's not as slapsticky, right? Like if we were to again these three comedies that we've had recently, Kind Hearts, Strange Love, and this one would be third of those in my book too. Yeah. But I think they're all three part of an era of comedies that they had to be smart.
Yeah.
And because they were smart, they endured.
Yeah.
But I also think, and I might be wrong, and I agree with you, that there's an element of Peter Sellers elevating this movie.
Sure.
In a way that it was not going to be if somebody else.
Which is funny because I don't think Sellers and Edwards got along at all, but they worked together like 5 more times or 6 more times, or
Well, I
whatever
mean,
it
if
was.
you're making money, you have to.
Pretty much, yeah.
No
It's
way.
like, yeah, but yeah, I mean, like, but Blake Edwards is, I mean, the one thing he may have been able to make it work with anybody. I mean, because he has an entire career of making really good comedies. I mean, 15 years after this, he makes 10, which is a massive hit.
Yeah,
And
true.
well liked, and so yeah, I mean, and then I mean, like he's always been a very keen comedic director.
Cool. This is a good movie. I really like it. I'm looking forward to revisiting the sequels because those are the ones I kind of cut my teeth on. But this is a good movie. I enjoy it.
I did too.
Same.
And I'm sorry, Jason, but no, I don't think we need to cut anything out of this, to be honest with you. I get what you're saying, and I think
20-30 minutes might be too much, but I think you could like keep the pace up a little bit.
I think a lot of that though is also revising it based on knowing the later ones.
That's
And the later ones are so much zippier.
I definitely think that's part of it. Yes.
Here's what I thought if I could.
I also think a different part of it is they didn't quite know exactly what they had that with Sellers and what he was going to fully bring to it. So a lot had to be kind of figured out in editing too.
What's wild about that, and what I think, like, if we were cutting anything out of this movie, you just cut George.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that takes out the best scene of the movie.
Right, it does.
Yeah.
The whole bedroom scene. Yeah,
Not the bedroom scene, the fucking 2 apes.
Oh, that too. Yeah, that too.
I mean, so there's 2 really good scenes that would be.
Yeah.
So that makes it
you could
impossible
make
for him to be cut.
Peter Sellers, if you could put him in that somehow, which is what later movies would do, right?
Yeah.
Like, or Kato or something. Like,
Kato, yeah,
in
Kato.
this fucking movie.
No, we don't get Kato for a bit. No, we don't have Kato here because Bruce Lee's not famous yet.
True.
This is interesting. I was just reading something about. We were asking like what Pink Panther maybe is trying to accomplish, right? And I think what at its core what it's trying to do is sort of lampoon the caper movie in general, right?
Sure.
Like it's lampooning Hitchcock. It's lampooning Top Cappy, which I've never seen, but it was mentioned by a critic when it came out.
Which is the Great Muppet Caper is trying to lampoon.
Right,
later.
yeah. And then you've got, interestingly enough, Top Cappy, Peter Sellers was originally planned to be the lead in that.
Really?
Yeah, but he refused to work with Maximilian Schell. So he wouldn't do the movie. But then, interesting. Top Cappy, it was Top Cappy the year before?
What? Wait, why didn't he want to work with?
I don't know. He didn't want to work with him.
So there was no chance of getting Peter Sellers to be in the black hole then.
Peter Sellers is an interesting dude.
It's interesting. Like Top Cappy came out in '64, though. So why?
Well,
It's
it could have been
bizarre.
filmed years earlier.
Yeah, maybe the book. Well, the novel is in 1962. So I don't know. So that probably wasn't purposefully lampooning that, but it came out like around the same time, which is weird. Anyway.
Well, if you have a good movie that's really good at lampooning a particular genre or a
Kind of
particular
more
type
genre,
of movie,
Yeah.
then you will be able to retroactively assign it that lampoon.
Sure.
Think about Airplane and Airplane came after a bunch of disaster movies, but there were other things it was lampooning that it was still very much a part of the early 80s too.
Sure, yeah. I do like what they say though. It says the movie acts as the straight man, while Sellers gets to play mischief maker.
Yeah.
That's
No, and that's
definitely
exactly
the
right.
charm of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, it's, it's played straight
Yeah.
until he falls over, or something. But even then the aftermath is not, it doesn't go that much. I mean,
none of what happens in this movie in reality is impacted by anything he does.
right.
Nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Whether he's falling over or trying to solve something, or
you could argue that the whole reason why Sir Charles gets caught is because George shows up and then throws everything off.
He's inconsequential.
Yes.
So he really is. And that's the genius of that, because he gets wrapped in to the finale as the culprit. Just by being there, guilty by association kind of.
It was just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. Or, both.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah. All right. I think we did it.
We did it. What's next week, Jeff?
Well, you brought up earlier, Chuck, that this felt a little James Bondy. Well, how about a movie that has a title that is extremely James Bond-like?
Yes.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. That's up next.
Yeah.
Where we have a little bit of Robert Downey Jr., a little bit of Val Kilmer.
Value Kilmer.
Value Kilmer.
We'll talk about next week.
Okay. Come down here and get your hand-me-downs from Value Kilmer.
Yep.
So that is next week. That is March the 12th. Oh, by the way, you guys all hit. You guys were all perfect at your Oscar picks from the other night, right?
100%.
Yeah, I was.
Perfect.
Yeah, I was too. Oddly enough, we didn't even pick all the same movies, and we were all perfect. We did great. It was great. Perfect. It's perfect. Anyway. So, so March 12th, that's when you can hear us talk about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Go to filmseizure.com. All of the various places you can follow us at, where you can subscribe and listen to the show, will be found there. This upcoming Monday, the 10th, same place, filmseizure.com, you can listen to a new episode of Monster Mondays, where I talk about the movie Bog. It's not about Wade Boggs. It's not about singular Wade Boggs.
It's not about one bog.
Oh, yeah. It would have been better if it was. Anyway, so that is, all the same places. Just go to filmseizure.com Monday afternoon to hear that. This upcoming Friday at my website, bmovieanima.com, I have a review of Surf Nazis Must Die.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty rad movie. So check that out. Anyway, I think I did it. So I don't know about you guys, but I did it.
Good job.
Until next week.
Good job. I think you did great.
Good job. Until then, I am Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Chickachine.
I'm Top Cappy, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.